Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 41. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Digginger.
Yes.
Andrew, I'm sure your bug tendrils are a-tingling.
Constantly.
It's
Very unseemly.
As the Tyrannids have made Planetfall, hopefully not Library Fall, right? As they say here in the Black Library.
Yeah, they're not really too focused on the chaos stuff, although they have developed a hive fleet just to fight chaos.
Oh, really?
That's interesting.
Whoa, that is... I mean, I guess they saw, they're like, look, we got to deal with this other predator. Yes, we can't eat them, but, you know, they're going to be problems eventually.
Yeah, it's cool that they think of chaos essentially as a rival predator to the food source.
Yeah,
which
pretty
is
much.
all of us.
Because, yeah, neither of them benefit from each other.
Nope, there is no soul to corrupt for the chaos, and there's no food to eat for the Tyrannids. So it's just a lose-lose.
It's just a bunch of waste of resources for those two. We should try to get them in more conflicts, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the big scar chaos in the sky, that definitely caused a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot more conflict. You
'cause
know, those tentacles were coming up. Was it Leviathan?
Leviathan, was coming up through the galactic plane.
You can imagine a few of those tentacles went right into that scar. And I was like, oh, man.
Well, actually, it's that now that you mention that, in the fluff of the Tyrannid book, they almost destroyed Baal, the homeworld of the Blood Angels. Like, literally almost wiped out their chapter. And at the last second, that storm happened, and it sucked, like, all of the Hive Fleet away. Like,
luckily.
It just got all sucked away.
Which, you know, speaking of Blood Angels, they're going to have some very exciting news this week. As so far already this week, news has been leaking about their codex, which is going to be on pre-order by this, I believe, Saturday. But we're still talking about your favorite bugs.
Oh, my God.
Tyrannids. Now, I know at the time of this coming out, the bugs have been out for a little while now. Things move very quickly now in the warp and in real space. And basically, we should talk a little bit about what do you think are some of the biggest highlights from the Tyrannids Codex?
Okay, so there's a lot to go over, and we're not going to go over all of it because I could be here for hours. But definitely some, at least, let's go broad spectrum first. The biggest changes to the army that just redefine how you play with them by far, even less of the stratagems. The stratagems are awesome. So good.
They are.
There are
some
so
of them
many.
Are so mean, too.
So many that are so powerful, and I want to use all of them, and I don't nearly have enough CP, and that's because this new format for them almost seems to want you to mix hive fleets. Mm-hmm. For me, particularly with the hive fleet trace, is the sort of very sideways way of going at this, but I was saying the big major change to how they fight is defined by their hive fleet adaptations.
Yep.
Which is their chapter tactics type of thing.
Yeah.
For me, I think the clear winner, and this is personal perspective, is Kraken. Getting a 3d6 picks the highest for advance when you have an army that has not only units that advance and charge, but also a psychic ability that allows you to advance and charge. That is extremely powerful.
Oh, yeah.
And if it was just that, it would be good. But then also you can leave combat and charge other units, which is just bonkers nuts.
It's really good.
So now we have combat bouncing things like Gene Stealers and stuff like that, which is where most people are going to be using that. But for me, my old Angry Crab Man, old One Eye, now gets 3d6 for his advance and can bounce in and out of combat, which means that every turn of my turn, he's leaving combat and recharging and doing his living battering ram, which is
really good.
Which got an update, by the way. Living battering ram now not only does the mortal wounds when they charge into combat for him on a 4+ is D3 mortal wounds, but also adds one to all of their hit rolls.
Yeah.
Which is silly for him because they changed his berserk mode, where now he only berserks and gets extra attacks on a 6. But he normally has a +1 anyway, so it's a 5. And then if he charges, it's a 4.
So if you give him Kraken, he's always charging.
He's always charging, which means he always has a 4+ to get additional hits.
And
unless he uses pincers, because then he's a 5+.
I think we've glazed over the one big change to Old One Eye.
You mean that he's an under 10 moon character now? with no degrading profile.
Untargetable.
Oh, yeah.
No degrading. That is the biggest boost ever. It's the character treatment.
Yes, he also got something that a lot of people have glazed over. Strength 6 is in a weird haze right now. He's now Strength 7 base.
Oh, wow,
which
he
means,
is?
Yes, which means his claws are now Strength 14.
That's very nice.
Which means he 2+s Mortarion.
He 2+s most things other than super heavies. But yeah, Tyrannus, I mean, God, I think, and you've been experiencing this all month, they've got so many good updates to a lot of their different characters and units that it's very hard to pick
my God.
an army now.
Oh my God.
8th edition is like the paralysis edition where you're just like, but what about
There's so much good stuff. I mean, like, even I was really considering, because I find myself leaning more and more to close combat armies, which is very counter to what I used to play.
Yeah.
A 180-degree swing, but
the guy who made an entire Tau army that was all Hammerhead vehicles.
Piranhas,
and
some Sky Race.
That's true.
A few drones.
But yes, none of those vehicles are close combat.
Nothing close
focused.
combat, yes. Nothing close combat. I played pure shooty for a long time, and don't get me wrong, I will be using blaster fexes, which is what I call them, of the 24-shot, 3+ to hit, quad devour effects, because that is just so tasty.
Yeah.
Those are my infantry clears. Like, if I see a screen, I'm just like, well, I 2 up against you and I 3 up to shoot. So, I mean, this is going to be great.
Here we go.
So that's really good. Carnifexes, in general, this is going to be an age of Carnifex because they got all of their options back, and Screamer Killers are back, and they're good.
And that's something that you've wanted for a while. I mean, you and I have talked forever about, like, Carnifexes. Everybody used to be scared of them, and they used to be so great. Now they're back.
They're back. They're back in a big way. And then, like, the last few things we'll point out, stratagems that they got that are unbelievably good. Even just one that's 3 CP, a unit, a Tyranny unit gets to attack again. Like,
that's so good.
That's unbelievably good. I mean, just the thought of Old One-Eye attacking twice in a turn, and then if you kill him, he can death throws and attack a third time. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah.
A couple subtle ones that are going to be game-changing, and especially for people like Swarmlord, the 1 CP pop a character can reroll wounds. That's a big deal.
It's so good.
Like, that for combat tyrants is a
And they have
big
so many
deal.
good close combat characters.
Everybody's good in combat.
insane.
It's Nids. Nids are back to where everything can threaten in close combat, and that's a big deal. But my favorite, especially because I'm thinking about using a Scythe Hyrule for the first time.
Whoa!
Yeah, using a Tyrannid Super Heavy for the first time.
That's bonkers.
Because a lot of people are used the Barbed Hyrule in the last edition. A lot of people are still using it because they like the Chronos adaptation, which allows you to stand and
yeah, and they
ones.
can fire a whole bunch of shots.
Yeah, 12 shots.
Pretty good.
Nothing to shake a tail at. But
Yep.
specifically with the Scythe Hyrule, especially with the chapter proof, which we'll get into in a second, it attacks D6 damage, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and then if you make them Kraken, they already move. Well, I don't know if you knew this about Scythe or about Hyrules,
I didn't.
but they auto advance 6. They don't roll dice.
Oh, they do.
They just auto advance 6.
Is it because they got that fast little tail?
Because they're agile.
Oh.
And then when they charge, they roll 3d6 and pick the 2 higher.
Oh, that's nice.
But then with Kraken, there's a stratagem that allows you to just double your advance, which means that an average Scythe Hyrule on turn 1 has a 24-inch move because it moves 12 inches.
Wow.
And then you throw fucking Onslaught on it, and it's a 24-inch move.
And that's from the that's Hive Commander ability, right?
No, I'm saying just a bypass, not even having Swarmlord.
Oh, okay.
You pop a 1-point stratagem that makes them a 24-inch move,
Jeez.
and then you use a psychic power on them that allows them to advance and charge, and then they have a 3d6 charge, you pick the higher. That's nasty. I can't wait.
Jeez. God.
Yeah, I mean, it's just redefine the army. The army they're gonna be top tier.
So I guess let's dive into
Let's
chapter
dive into
approved because
chapter approved, yeah.
that just happened. I mean, the pre-order just went up the previous weekend. It's going to release by the end of this week, but already pretty much the majority of all the rules, and
major
point drops
leaks, the major leaks are there.
have already come out everywhere, which is fine because also in a certain way, chapter approved shouldn't be, in my perspective, this great hidden thing like codexes are because it's a big FAQ.
It's just an FAQ.
It's a big FAQ to the edition, so it's weird to hide it. You know what I mean?
It's just it's a singular combined FAQ. Is what it is.
And man, there's a lot of stuff. So first, one thing to call out, one thing everybody was prophesizing, even the great Farseers were also prophesizing it, that there would be a Smite addressing in this chapter approved. There is not.
Well, okay. Let's be clear. I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you that it hasn't been leaked at all. It hasn't been mentioned anywhere. I like
Maybe
to hold
it's in a back corner.
I like to hold all judgment until I have the book in my hands.
Let's preempt the comments and the tweets.
Because people have definitely said things are not in books, and then we get the book and it's in the book. So
Right.
I will give them the benefit of the doubt
Yep.
that it looks like it's not there, which Jay and I are both like, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm also
It's-
fine with it.
And the big deal is, because we had just discussed this previously off the podcast, is that really the problem wasn't Smite. The problem was the characters that could abuse Smite.
Exactly. The placeholders, right? And in a lot of cases, and we'll get to that in a second, it's the point cost for those characters.
Yep.
Is that they were just so low, and you could spam so many of them that, like, you could get so much Smite on the board. But now, and especially as we've seen with a lot of the FAQs, like what they did for Zenja Demons, like what they did to the horrors, right? Where they nerfed them.
Yep.
And they've done the same now, especially to one big abuser,
Malefic
Mr.
Lords.
Malefic Lord. Now 80 points instead of 30 points, which is, God, that's a huge point increase, but a well-deserved point increase.
It needed to be that.
I think we're going to see a huge reduction in them being used. We'll see how that meta changes a little bit, but let's talk about the kind of new codex for Space Marines and also Death Guard, because both Space Marines and Death Guard got a really nice buff with Chapter Approved.
Well, the one thing that I'm sure everybody's hemming and hawing at.
Well, I guess there was one nerf.
G-Man did go up in cost.
Oh my God, how many points though?
He's only 385 now.
What? What a catastrophe. No one will ever take him ever again. Those additional 25 points do not warrant taking him.
Yeah.
A guy who is impossible to kill, a monster in close combat, and the best
Buff
force multiplier
in the
ever.
game.
My God, G-Man's so good.
Yeah, so that was a nice little touch to just give him some extra points.
And I definitely don't think, like, I think he's fine. Like, I think, like, when 8th edition first dropped, especially with Space Marines being the first one to get a codex, I think we heard a lot more frustration around G-Man, especially with back in the day of all the, all the flyer spam and everything.
Yeah, and I mean, it was also because he just gives things to Imperial in general, so he was just, like, the best warlord to take, because you could just take Ultramarines for, like, some, like, last cannon units and stuff, and then you just surround them with guard.
Right.
And it's just, like, that was a problem, yeah.
But now I think he's much more appropriately costed, especially with how the edition's going. Like, I don't think there's any problems with G-Man. But anyways, so G-Man's more appropriately costed, and now we've got, but for Primaris Marines,
Oh my God.
holy crap.
Oh my God. All the Primaris units got a decrease. The biggest one is probably Inceptors, the jetpack guys.
Oh my God, yes.
Because the assault bolters went down. Well, their core cost went down by 5 points.
Yep.
But then the assault bolters went down by 5 points each. So now they're only 20 points for 2 assault bolters. But really, it's the plasma exterminator was previously.
Yeah, that variant that nobody ever saw.
Nope, it was previously 28 points per gun, and they had to take 2 of them on
man.
a two wound unit.
Yeah, pretty expensive.
Now only 17 points. They went down by 11 points each. So now that's 27 points cheaper for the double plasma exterminator Inceptor unit.
God.
That's such a reduction. It's
That's
crazy.
81 points. That's a Dark Reaper unit.
Yeah.
That's a Dark Reaper unit.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's massive.
That's insane.
Yeah. So and then Intercessors, their standard troop unit, are now at 18 points, so they went down by 3.
Oh my God, which is great. I mean, those guys were... Look, I mean, people... I don't know enough about Space Marines. I don't play Space Marines that much.
Yeah.
But in a lot of the games that I've seen, especially the tournament-winning Space Marine lists, I haven't seen that many Primaris Marines.
No.
You'll see Razorbacks with the twin assault cannons, which that spam got a little bit of addressed with Chapter Approved, which
Yes.
I guess, yes, with buffs to Primaris, there were nerfs to things like Razorbacks went up a couple points.
Yeah, assault cannons, twin assault cannons are now more expensive.
Yep. So a couple things went up a little bit points in that regard, and like I guess the standard Space Marine build, but across the board, Primaris dropped.
Yes. Primaris in general are now a much more feasible choice.
Oh yeah.
Like with my Death Watch sort of side project that I was working on, was thinking about using Inceptors because I love plasma weapons, but then they were like almost 90 points each.
So expensive.
And it was just like that for a 2-wound guy. That's way too much. So then I was like, no, I'm never going to use it. But now I see that and they can be in the unit up to 6, and I'm like, chuck in a Chapter Master an upgraded CP point Chapter Master that can deep strike next to them, and suddenly they reroll all hits, and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, that'll kill a whole bunch of stuff.
That's so nice.
I think one last army to mention that got a nice reduction in points was Death Guard, and that was with their Death Shroud Terminators. Because previously these guys were 50 points, and they were good, but they were just so expensive. Now they're only
35 points, 15-point drop.
That's pretty good.
It makes them, actually, once again, it's this edition. I think the theme of this edition is it's worth considering.
Yeah,
like everything is like
everything is worth considering.
It's worth
now.
considering.
That's they've done a pretty good job of balancing everything. Like, but maybe this, but also maybe this.
But yeah, actually, a significant amount of the army of Death Guard in general, just like Primaris Marines and Space Marines in general, they got point reductions.
Yeah, I mean, Plague Marines dropped a little bit. I think down to 17 points, which is great.
Down to 17 points now. Their weapons, like the Blight Launcher, dropped in points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see a lot of these armies. I don't want to say they were struggling, definitely not, but I think that just needed a little extra tweak, especially with some of the other codexes and FAQs we've seen. I think these extra tweaks, to like Grey Knights, to some Death Watch, who, Death Watch haven't gotten their codex yet, which we'll talk about those in a second, but even just the existing ones, Death Guard and Space Marines, especially Primaris, getting a little bit of a tweak here and there.
And of course, there were some subtle changes to my Gene Stealer cults.
Some subtle changes to your Gene Stealer cult.
We don't need
guys.
to go over because they're mine now. And no one should use them.
Don't look at those Gene Stealer cult point reductions.
Well, and I mean, the one thing we need to point out as well, because we mentioned points drops and stuff, but we need to talk about that they did like sort of an interim codex edition for the armies that don't have codexes.
Which is pretty cool. I have to say, I'm really happy with how GW addressed that. Like, it could have just been like, this is what it is for right now. Good luck, everybody. But I will definitely say that, like, I think they're releasing the codexes at a good pace. At least that's my opinion.
They're going to release 2 at the same time.
There's so many codexes. Like, even now, we're talking about chapter approved and Tyrannage, which at this point feels like an afterthought, but that was like 3 weeks ago. It just happened.
It's minimum 1 a month. It's usually 2 a month, which is just like, yes.
It's a lot to digest with the meta shifting so much.
Well, because people were worried. They were like, oh, how are they going to update them all so fast? And they're doing it. Like, they're like, oh, guess what? We're rapid fire. Here's 2 on the same day.
And in the meantime, they dropped these, which we won't go through all of them. I think you can find on the Voxternet out there. There's some great places you can find all the details. Warhammer Community dropped some specific details themselves as well.
Some of them got just clear additions to just make them more competitive. Like, all of the Eldar ones essentially got Webway Portal, which is like...
Drukhari finally got Webway Strike. Harlequins finally got Webway Strike.
Yeah, it's great. Like, that's just a great thing to get. Gene Stealer Cult got Return to the Shadows back.
Which is awesome.
That's great. And they got also another one that we don't need to talk about. It's really good.
Another nice boost. But yeah, all of them got like a pretty interesting boost. I'm still interested to see. I think one codex out there is my old Necrons, which are in their tomb world now sleeping, to see what their codex does.
They did get a nice stratagem. I don't know why it's 2 CP, but they did get a 2 CP stratagem to give reanimation protocol to a Canoptic unit.
Which is great.
That's can be very
They also
powerful.
got 2 CP to reroll 1s for reanimation protocols. I forget if it's for all units or if it's for 1 unit. If it's for 1 unit, I think 2 CP is pretty high.
It's all units. It's reroll.
It's all units.
2 CP reroll reanimation protocols of 1 this turn.
Okay, so that makes sense.
At least how it's listed here. We need to read it when we get the book. But if it's listed here, it's army-wide.
That's pretty good.
That's a big deal.
For 2 CP, yeah. So I'm still interested to see how they shake out. But yeah, so those are kind of the big updates from this last month. I know there was a lot. Tyrannids, all the things with chapter approved, everything from points reductions and increases all the way through to even the new stratagems and abilities some of these other factions are going to get before they get their codex.
It's vomitous. There's just too much.
There's just too much going on. But yeah, guys, so that's our news and updates. Up next is, of course, our favorite segment, our Season of the Month. Andrew, you go first.
Why, man? Why? Like, my heartstrings.
That's right. I got right in there.
You just tug at
them.
them.
Went right for the heart, and then I grabbed those strings and just ripping them strings.
That's not nice.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, so in the last tournament, I actually did pretty well, especially considering I was using kind of a joke list. I really didn't want to fully commit to Tyranids, even though I should have called ahead. Our tournament was the day that the codex released.
Yeah.
So I kind of made a pact with myself to not use the new codex, although...
Was it a dark pact? Like, was there heresy involved?
No, it was more just like I'm going to get my last hurrah with this to see how things use. And
hurrah pact.
Hurrah pact.
The darkest of all pacts.
And then to, get that reflection of just like, well, this was this, but now it's this. So I used a bunch of Genestealer Cult stuff, and I used what I was comfortable with using, not knowing what the changes were going to be, because I was like, if I'm going to use this, I got to use the new rules. And I didn't call ahead to see if I could use the new rules. In retrospect, I could have. But it was kind of just more of a fun list.
Yeah.
I had 3 Molochs in it, which I'm kind of on the fence now of, Molochs aren't
Still, even with the new codex, it's like, Molochs, take it or leave it.
great. They sometimes are fun, but a lot of the times they're just like, Zoanthropes, still use. I will always use them.
They're great.
And that's my favorite iteration of their model. I think they look amazing.
They do.
I can't wait to finish painting them. And then I've been playing around using 2 units of 6, because that sounds like a pain in the ass and so much fun.
So many mortal wounds.
It's just so much. But ironically, no Biovores. Didn't use any Biovores.
How dare you?
The people were
How
surprised.
dare you not
use my
cripple people's spirits by bringing 15
15
Biowars? You monster.
which ironically didn't get really much of a change at all. They're pretty much as they were.
I mean, look, we all know they needed a buff, so what real sad day for Biowars.
Very good unit that I haven't seen in like a single list since the Codex
I don't know
dropped.
why they're not everywhere.
Because there's too many cooks, man.
Too many cooks in them kitchens.
Too many cooks in the
It's
kitchens.
Webway Chaos Kitchens.
So I won my first and second game, which I didn't expect. In my third game,
I didn't expect it either, and none of our listeners either. So
No.
we're all still in
I mean,
shock.
Hurrah for me. I did well for once. Yeah, so in my last game, I was going against a mainly Chaos army. Had a whole bunch of heretics, and had the 5 Malefic Lord blob surrounded by
What?
Zench demons.
Well, now old Malefic Lord fellows are now in not in a bad way.
No, they're just balanced.
They're balanced. Also, one thing we didn't call out earlier: conscripts went up an extra point, 4 points instead of 3 now.
Went up an extra point, and no longer are you only remove 1 unless you have that special pistol thingy.
Yeah. So conscripts, after all these FAQs and stuff, have
Balanced-
we'll see. Balanced them out.
Require you to actually use 2 CP to make them fearless.
That sounds ridiculous.
I know,
and unreasonable.
right? Yeah.
And I won't have it. I won't. I'm gone, sir. I'm back.
Jay left, and then he's back again.
Yeah. Time works weird here. I was gone for hours, not on purpose. I got lost.
But yeah, basically the guff of his army, because we realized real fast that as soon as he did actually allow me to use with my Zoanthropes and my Neurothrope, he allowed me to split my Neurothrope off instead, but also have the new Synapse and Shadows rule. Like he was nice enough to allow me to at least experiment with that and see what it's like to have the 24-inch shadows and everything now, which is just so good.
Very good.
Also, the Chronos specific ability. He let me use the Chronos ability that if you attempt a psychic test within 24 inches of a Chronos unit, I can make him only roll 1d6.
Yep.
Which
So basically, he let you update for your Tyranny units, update to the new Tyranny
a few
Codex.
of them, just like a few.
A few of them.
It really was just the Zoanthropes and like my Malnothrop as my Warlord, just making them Chronos.
How dare he? How dare he let you do that?
But where do my C's comes in? Have I dodged it long enough?
You have.
So
I got lost in a library for hours, and you still haven't talked about it.
So he was running Magnus, and he was running an interesting new combo, which was he was running Abadeb down
Abadibadon?
and 2 units of Obliterators, which I still wholeheartedly support. They are really good now. They doubled in their shots, 12 shots with what they have, and then if you stick Abby with them, he's a Chapter Master, reroll all hits, very strong.
Very good.
And their guns are nasty as shit. And then if they Slaanesh, Mark of Slaanesh, which why wouldn't you?
Then you can cacophony. That's how you say it, right?
Cacophony.
Cacophony.
You can cacophony and you can shoot them again. And the best part is that it's for that phase, so then you can find out what their power is and then shoot them again, which is really good. So that, and then basically a lot of blob units. And we found out very quickly that like I had almost no fear from his psychic powers because of the 18-inch shadows in the warp.
Yeah.
Now, comparatively to like where it was like 9
or so.
8
Weird numbers before.
previously. And then so essentially I made this giant bubble in the center of the board with shadows of -1, which even against something like Magnus was like, well, if he wants to get in range to smite, he has to have the -1.
Yep.
So that was a big deal. So it was just this like, I never really feared his psychic powers. He barely got anything off just because I kept denying everything. So I needed to take care of 2 things, and 2 things alone. He had a unit of Wyverns in the back, 2 Wyverns, because he was using some Renegades, some Traitor Guard stuff. So he had 2 Wyverns and Magnus. And if I got rid of those 2 things, he basically had no way to deal with my army. The problem is that when I have reserve assault units, especially Cult, I feel the innate need to bring them in on the first turn and immediately charge with them. And he screened just enough that with a decent charge, my Roxall guys could get to his Wyverns, but not get all of them on it, and then he could just leave or just kill the guys that are there. So, long story short, I should have waited a turn, forced him to come out if he wanted to do something, and then he would have left a nice gap in the back of his field where I could have brought in my cult units, and then it would have been a big problem, because it's like, what do you go for the front units, that's Zoanthropes and all the other shit, or do you go for the backfield units that's 30-plus cult guys that are all combat-based?
Yeah,
So,
that are just going to charge in at your back line.
yeah, because, like, I mean, he didn't have any shooting but the Wyverns. And, like, I guess the Obliterators coming in, but, like, a real threat to my Gene Stealers and the cult guys, like, other than the auto guns of the cultists, like, and the Wyverns, there was really nothing to threaten, like, my cult infantry units.
Oh.
As far as, like, massed anti-infantry fire. And especially if the Wyverns had died, then that's all he would have been like las guns, basically.
Right.
Stat-wise. So it would have been like, those go, and then my Gene Stealers can just run rampant and just go wherever the hell they want and just chew through everything, because they're fucking Gene Stealers.
Yeah.
They rip everything apart. So yeah, I was dumb. And essentially, that because I did that, I brought in both my key assault units and then lost them immediately afterwards. And
Because of the Wyverns?
Because of the Wyverns, and because I didn't get the focus down Magnus in a turn, and then I got stuck.
You goof.
And basically fucked up all my deep strikes, and I didn't lose terribly. It was only a few points. I still struggled out a minor loss, but it was still a really dumb thing. And immediately after I did it, he looked at me and he was like, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "I don't know."
You got a little bit of that J blood rage in you.
I just
and you were
got
like,
antsy in the pantsy.
Just get everybody out there now. Just kill everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I've just been having so much fun with combat in this edition. I just got...
Just got to get it as soon as possible.
I think it was also because I didn't expect to win my first 2 games, that I was kind of like on a high of like, oh my God, I actually won 2 games. And it was just like, I'm just going to go
You're
at
just
it.
in like a dream, like a fugue state. Like,
I can do no wrong.
I mean, well, whatever I pick will work.
I'm unstoppable. Yeah.
But look, lessons learned, I guess. It is interesting. I've noticed there's a lot more strategy to holding deep strikers and reserve units back more than turn 1.
Yeah, it's especially because we have the option for turn 1 deep strikes now, which we didn't previously.
Which is why I think everybody's like, turn 1, everything in. I
Yeah.
can do it. I don't even have to randomly scatter.
I think the best players that you'll see getting the top tier tournaments that have reserves are the ones that, like, because you have to bring them in at least a turn 3 or they're destroyed, but it's the ones that have the patience.
Turn 2, turn 3.
The patience to hold off.
Because,
in
like,
the
turn
real
1,
moment.
the mentality is to keep that bubble wrap strong and to prevent from turn 1 deep strikers. But when you get to turn 2 and 3, that priority starts to slip a bit more for emphasis on objectives.
Exactly.
And that's where you can wait for that window to open up.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I guess those are all our C's. So now we'll be going on to
No.
our... But what?
No, Jay.
Sorry?
C's.
All right. I didn't
Do
do it
it.
yet. Fine. So my C's is encapsulated in that Culexus assassins are still dicks. So
Yep, they are just giant animate dicks. That's what they are.
they are. But basically, this was the first tournament I got to bring my new Craft World Eldar, which I was very excited to play.
That's right. You heard it here, folks. Harlequins are already gone.
Yeah. For a long time, just like Harlequins forever, never change. But no, I was waiting for a Craft World to finally get, I would say, something.
Also, you're just dreading painting all those diamonds.
Oh God, so many diamonds. That was probably a big part of it too, where I was like, if it was just an easier paint scheme. Because I could do a non-diamond paint scheme, but like, you're going to kind of want to do a diamond paint scheme. It's Harlequins.
Got to do diamonds.
And no way I'll have that ready in time for LVO. So instead, Craft World Eldar it is, which a lot are already painted for me.
And also you're an Eldar player.
I'm an Eldar player, and
that's your
I
jam.
love Craft World Eldar. As much as I love Harlequins, I also love them, and just for a while, the Index, just nothing excited me about it.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. He didn't use Harlequins. Well, they had like more of a fan decks originally, but he didn't use 5th, 6th, and 7th edition used Craft World Eldar.
Yeah.
You just did.
And now that I've had my fun with my Harlequins, they're not gone, that I just want to try Craft World out for a little while. But with this army, I was very excited to play. I took the main one for the entire army was a Latic, or as we've been told, Alatok or Latok. Look, guys, in the warp, you pronounce things differently. Look, when you talk to a demon, you got to speak to him in demon language, and the emphasis on the vowels and the souls, the stuff is like, it's just all very tricky.
Also, we're American and we say shit weird.
We say shit weird. Also, we are terrible at grammar, I guess.
And the English language in general.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
so we're just bad at language all over the place.
I mean, we say Comarog, and we heard more than one time that it's more Camorra.
Yeah.
Like the, I believe, Italian mafia.
And sure, Archons and Homunculus have threatened our lives to pronounce it correctly, and we're still alive, so I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, that works out.
But anyways,
it worked itself out.
I made my whole army a Latok. But basically they were a whole bunch of Rangers, 3 units of Dark Reapers, because I went Brigade. I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to get all the CP I can. I had 2 full units of Fire Dragons, both coming in the webway. It's 3 CP, but it's just like, man, I want to try that out. That sounds crazy.
Yep, webway Portal Strike.
And then for my elites, along with the Fire Dragons, I also had 1 small unit of Striking Scorpions, and then I had 3 units of Warp Spiders. So I fully covered in my brigade. I had like a Farseer and a Warlock and 1 other Warlock, basically 2 Warlocks and a Farseer to fill out my HQ, but I was basically ready to go. And I had some good games, but really where the siege comes into play is the last game, where essentially I'd castled up in the back, and I was against an Astra Militarum player. He had a really interesting list. It was very diverse. It was like a lot of Space Marine bikers to get a lot of mobility to capture objectives. Had tons of mortar teams. My God, I think there was like... Man, there was
remember seeing that army.
8 or 10 or like so many mortar
teams. It was close to a dozen, if not more.
It was so many. And Celestine and some Seraphim and a bunch of them.
A real Imperial menagerie.
Yeah, he also had one of those little things. They look like these little rover units that drive up and explode.
Oh,
Cyclops,
I think it's the Cyclops, yeah.
Yeah. Those things are hilarious, but they're so annoying. They're tiny and they blow up on you. It's nuts. But a really fun, interesting army, and it basically was a game of who can spread out the most. And essentially, with his scouts and with all of his biker units and everything, he had a lot of coverage. And I had to figure out ways to basically stop him, because this game really came down to the tertiary objectives. It came down to Linebreaker, Slay the Warlord, and I believe the game had First Strike.
Was this the last round?
It was the last round.
It was Big Game Hunter.
Right. It was Big Game Hunter, Slay the Warlord, and Linebreaker. And really, at the very end of the game, we figured out that Linebreaker was kind of going to make and break. And with how the deployment was, it was like almost impossible for me to get Linebreaker. So it came down to me preventing him from getting Linebreaker. And this is where it comes back to old tricky Culexus assassins. Those jerks. He had in this army 3 Culexus assassins.
Yep.
Which, my big mistake was just letting them sit in this area in the back, just waiting all game. They had dropped in and killed, I think, a Warp Spider unit and then just sat there all game. And for multiple turns, I could have sent some guys out there to start taking care of them. And I had Dark Reapers, who are very good at taking out Culexus assassins because they don't get that...
Always hit on a 3.
They always hit on a 3. They even FAQ'd it because people were asking about it. They always hit Culexus on a 3. So I could take those guys out pretty easily, actually. So I could have dealt with them. My Dark Reapers can move and fire, so that doesn't lessen their ability to kill them. But I just
the stupidest
focused on shooting them Seraphim and blowing up little Cyclops rovers driving all over the place. And he gave me a lot of distraction that I just didn't focus on those stupid Culexus assassins. And then by the time they came out, old character rule, had 3 of them out there, and the only unit that was in range was 2 Dark Reaper units, because he had strategically killed 1 other. And in my next turn, I would have only been able at a max kill 2 Culexus assassins, because nobody else was in range. Everybody else was downfield dealing with Celestine.
Yeah, which is still not an easy feat, because they're still with a 4+ invul save and 5 wounds.
They're
still not easy to dispatch.
They're still not easy to dispatch, but that was the most I could do.
Yep.
And clever enough, he outplayed, and he slipped that last Culexus assassin across the lines, got Linebreaker, and took the game. So that was my big seize of the month, is just not letting those stupid Culexus assassins
Don't forget about
around
units on the board, Jay. Where was your bloodlust?
I don't know what was happening. I think I was just too distracted. There was too many things to kill. There was little rovers. There was bikes driving on. There's mortar teams.
Because the bloodlust was too high
yeah.
that you got blood drunk.
Yeah, I got blood drunk.
And then you got blood blinders.
It's a real problem. I mean... It's a big issue in
Lots
Khorne's
of blood.
realm.
How many times can we put blood in front of a word?
Who knows? Keep going. But yeah, one thing I will say, with the LATEC, it's really cool because I've always had a problem with Astra Militarum, especially with flimsy elite infantry units that Eldar likes to take. But with the LATEC, against mortar teams, when you're getting a natural -1, that really hurts their firepower capabilities. And since Rangers already have a built-in -1, And even my warp spiders, if you flicker jump, a lot of my army, when he was trying to shoot off objectives, it was almost impossible. He needed 6s in most cases to hit my units.
Yep.
Which is pretty nice.
Relying on some real luck of the dice gods there.
I do appreciate it. But guys, those were our Seasons of the Month, and that'll take us into our main segment, the Brown Library. Whew, man, a lot of things happening out there.
Too many cooks.
All the crazy changes and updates. It's just
All this biomass.
a lot of biomass. Wait, what are you talking about?
What?
Are you okay?
No,
I know a while ago you were experiencing
this
some
pendant doesn't mean
crinkles.
anything.
Pendant, what the? All right, we're going to check on that definitely
Oh,
later
the
on.
four-armed emperor. Who said that?
Oh, shit. Well, before we address that huge, God, going to be a huge problem. But let's talk about what is, for our Brown Library segment, what is the faction we're going to be diving in today to build a list?
We're going to be talking about Space Marines.
Space Marines?
This was a request by Valhalla 130.
Valhalla 130, thank you for making this request.
Yeah, he wanted us to talk about one thing in particular. It's a tank in a Space Marine army that's, I agree, I've never seen used in this edition, or really much of last
I
edition
think I
either.
can probably guess which one.
It's the Whirlwind.
Yes, the Whirlwind.
Yeah, it's kind of not ever seen, really.
Yeah. Do you think it's their secret weapon? Do you think it's going on secret stealth missions for the Space Marines?
Why would a Whirlwind be on stealth missions?
Well, because nobody ever sees it.
No,
They've got so many of them. They got to be doing something.
that doesn't sound right, Jay. That doesn't sound right.
That's probably true.
The Whirlwind is a 7 toughness tank with 11 wounds, has basically the same degrading profile as every Space Marine tank. They basically all have the same profile.
That makes sense.
Like, if there are 11 wounds, it's movement, ballistic skill, and attacks that go down.
Well, it's very easy on Mars when they're making those, right? They just print, one wall, one wall, one wall, one wall, and then just ship those bad boys out.
That's right.
They're like, what goes on it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We'll decide when we get there.
Makes sense to me. But a Whirlwind it's just there to be an artillery piece. It's a rocket launcher on a tank.
Yeah.
And essentially converted Rhino chassis, because the Rhino is sort of like the base for all of their vehicles. They just convert Rhinos to...
Hey, look, when you get it right the first time, why change?
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, you think about it. Rhinos, Razorbacks, Predators, Whirlwinds, the Hunter-Stalker variants, Vindicators.
Yeah, they're all just different rhinos.
They're all just different Rhinos.
Yeah, just like in the animal kingdom.
That's right.
All those
All those
rhinos
things
out there.
are different Rhinos. Lions, just different Rhino.
Or I was just thinking of the Vindicator rhino. They're really scary. You only find them on Catachan, but run into one of those bad boys.
Yeah.
You will never hear from you again.
I mean,
but
a building-size Rhino.
Yeah.
That's a problem. But the Whirlwind, it has a choice of 2 weapons. I mean, it can target things that are not visible, so it's 72 inches. It shoots the whole board.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can't run from it. It either has the Castellan launcher, which is heavy 2d6, strength 6, 1 damage, no AP.
Strength 6. It's that weird Strength 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clearly an anti-infantry weapon. 2d6 shots, no AP, only 1 damage. It's strength 6 is essentially 3-ups all infantry.
Right.
Which is that's very...
Or 2-ups, Eldar and Guard.
Yeah, it's still very strong. It's very clearly a strict anti-infantry weapon. And then the other version is the Vengeance Launcher, which is definitely light tank / heavy infantry focused. It's strength 7, AP -1, and 2 damage, and it's 2d3 shots.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's essentially like a 2d3 autocannon that shoots the whole board and you can't hide from it.
Interesting.
So, definitely not bad weapons at all.
No, not at all.
They also got a 5-point decrease in chapter approved.
Ooh,
so
that's nice.
They're now only 95 points for the Castellan launcher, that's the anti-infantry version, and 102 points for the Vengeance launcher, that's the anti-heavy infantry light vehicle version.
Gotcha.
So in our list, of course, there's going to be some spam.
Just quite a few Whirlwinds.
It's going to be some spam, yes, I know. It's impossible to avoid, but when you request one unit particularly, I match an army as I can around that unit, but you're going to spam it a little bit. So we do have one where this is going to be Ultramarines. And the reason this is Ultramarines is because, one, we have G-Man, because you got to have G-Man.
Of course, you got to have G-Man. Look, if you're going to have a big artillery emplacement, you got to have some G-Man action up in there.
More importantly, because it's Space Marine, Ultramarines artillery, that means that they reroll all hits and wounds.
Yeah. And listen, the Whirlwinds, if they're going on all these secret missions, who do you think they're getting those secret missions from? They're getting them from G-Man.
G-Man, of course.
Yeah.
So we have a Ultramarines Spearhead detachment. That's a Techmarine. All of our HQs are Techmarines because
Nice.
basically everything we have is tanks for the most part. So we're going to keep them alive.
Goodness.
We'll have 3 total Techmarines, and they'll be babysitting something I'll tell you about in a second. But our Spearhead has 6...
Is it a baby tank?
No.
Oh,
We have 6 Whirlwinds in our Spearhead detachment.
nice.
3 with castellan launchers, 3 with vengeance launchers.
Makes
It's
sense.
a
Mix and
nice
match.
Even mix. You get targets. They can target pretty much anything we want, but specifically the castellans will go after the infantry units in the backfield. The one thing that's great about this is you have 6 units that can target anything on the board. You can put them anywhere on the board, and they can target anything on the board.
That's true.
So essentially, you have run-of-the-mill. You just put them anywhere in your deployment zone, make sure they're within range of G-Man, and just go fucking apeshit. And as a toughness 7-11 wound model with a 3+ save, like, they're resilient.
Oh, yeah.
You have to deal a fair amount of damage to get rid of them.
66 wounds.
Yeah.
You kill all of them. That's a lot.
And with the Techmarines healing them potentially every
Yeah,
turn.
it's
that's
true.
even
All of them
more.
just tapping the back of that rhino.
So we then have an Ultramarines battalion, and in this battalion we have 3 scout units as our troops with just camo cloaks, bolters, and a heavy bolter.
Scouts are really good.
The reason to have this is because this is deep strike deterrent if need be. You can, because they deploy essentially after your army and have to just be 9 inches away from the enemy.
Scouts actually have an even better deployment than I ever knew about. Because they, I think as we've talked about, they infiltrate before the infiltrate step.
Yeah, they can just be deployed anywhere on the field that's 9 inches away from the enemy.
During regular deployment.
Yep.
You can counter other infiltrators with scouts.
And that's why I said they're essentially like your infiltrator / deep strike deterrent, even just 3 units, because you just have these 3 80-point units that essentially are like, well, there's this huge bubble in front of my artillery units that
Yep.
you cannot get close to.
That old scout bubble.
Like, you can basically bar all of your half of the board from deep strikers and infiltrators. It's very powerful.
Pretty good.
So let's talk about what's left in that battalion. So you have these 3 units of scouts to essentially be deterrent. Then you have 2 more Techmarines, so it's 3 total Techmarines. What do? Well, they babysit.
I wonder.
Well, they babysit, specifically what's more out front, is 3 Predators.
Oh, boy.
Because Predators are actually a lot better this edition than a lot of people give credit.
Yeah, I've seen them do some serious work.
And they have a really cheap stratagem that just allows them to add 1 to their wound rolls, which would already be really good, but then it also adds 1 to their damage as well.
Yes.
Which means that, you better believe that all of these Predators have twin last cannons.
Of course they do.
With last cannon sponsons.
Oh, yeah.
So then all of their last cannons are doing a minimum of 2 damage up to 7 damage on their rolls. And because you have G-Man, so let's consider this. G-Man's your warlord, because... Of course. He comes with the Ultramarines trait, which is on a 5+1, you use a command point, you get it back.
And we've seen games where with that Ultramarine trait, like, you are just getting
You're
back
swimming.
like all of your CP.
Yeah.
I've seen people like burning them at the end to be like, how much do I have left? God, all right, they pass morale, and this just re-roll this for why not?
So you have G-Man, who gives you 3. You have the battalion, which gives you 3 more. Then you have a Spearhead, which gives you another 1. So we're at 7. Then you get 10 because you get the 3 because it's match play. And you're getting him back every turn. So essentially, the other reason that we have scouts with heavy bolters is because now you can also be using the Hellfire round stratagem.
Love the Hellfire rounds.
Which is so good. Precision mortal wounds is excellent. It's a very good stratagem. So essentially, every turn you're going to be using that and the Predator stratagem, because why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, just 1 CP, and you have a very good chance of getting it back.
Yeah, so you're using it every turn to make them wound anything on the game on a 2+, rerollable.
Very nice.
With added 1 to damage and a -3 rend because it's a last cannon. Yeah, I mean, that's your anti-vehicle. Then you have the Vengeance launchers that are like semi-anti-vehicle. Then you can just throw Hellfire rounds to spit mortal wounds out. And if, lo and behold, they're in your lines, chuck G-Man into them. And
yeah,
it's just like...
G-Man is very good at diffusing those situations.
So this is a very much a pure gun line, but tank battalion gun line.
Yeah, it
Space
is.
Marine unit.
Jeez, it's 9 tanks.
9 tanks. All that are T7, all with 11 wounds.
3 Techmarines.
Remember, so you were like adding it up. It was 66 wounds before. Add another 33 wounds. It's 99 wounds of tanks.
99 wounds of tanks. I got 99 problems, and all of them are tanks.
99 wounds of tanks on the wall. 99 wounds of tanks. You take one away, there's still a shit ton left.
So many goddamn tanks.
And yeah, most of the tanks, they essentially don't get degrade like most things until they lose half their health at least. And with Techmarines, it's just a boop, boop, boop.
It's so frustrating to fight an entire army that's T7.
Yeah, the entire army, basically.
God!
So yeah, all of the infantry weapons are essentially almost worthless. And you have to have so much anti-tank, and at that point,
Those
you're
poor
like,
scouts are going to be so overkilled by all those infantry-based weapons.
yeah, and I mean, still, scouts with camo cloaks get a +2 to their saves and covers, so they're 2+ saves and cover. Like, they're not slouches to get rid of.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, I mean, this is a very fun sit back, and like you'd think, oh, what what if they hide? Well, that's why you have 6 whirlwinds that you cannot hide against this army. You
Nope.
cannot hide. It's impossible
You
to hide.
cannot hide from the whirlwind. But as we know, for months now, the whirlwinds have been hiding from you, and they are now coming out
That's right.
of cover.
It was all preparing for this
It was all
moment.
preparing for this moment. They've been on this secret mission.
But yeah, the thought of 3 predators, which are probably going to be the higher priority target, but like, God, the 12 last cannons that reroll hits and wounds.
I've seen
and
the kill
wounds on
shot
2s.
stratagem in person. It's good.
Like that is anti any type of anti-vehicle, and then like
Anti-monsters, anti-everything.
anti-monsters. You also have anti-elite infantry. You also have the vengeance launchers for anti-light vehicles if you need to deal a few more wounds and stuff like that.
Predators are really good now, and G-Man is, for something like this, for sit back and shoot army, is such a good force multiplier. Now, you might not grab as many objectives as you might want to, although the tanks can move around. So, I mean...
They can. They only suffer a -1. Not a big deal when you hit on 3s normally.
And you have the reroll from G-Man.
And the rerolls from G-Man.
Not bad.
And that's like, I feel like most of the time, G-Man, if he needs to, with it being the emphasis there, would abandon the whirlwinds and go with the predators as like a predator kill squad type of thing. You'd have like the 3 Techmarines sitting behind the predators, keeping them alive, and then G-Man with them.
Would you say that he is the apex predator
He is
in that group?
10 points.
Oh, yeah!
Normally I would scorn you, but that was a good one.
All right.
That was a good one. He
I'll take
is
it.
the apex predator of predators. And an amazing close combat deterrent because fucking wrecks in combat.
Kills pretty much everything.
But yeah, I mean, that's the list. It's very simple. It's very straightforward, but kills the shit out of you. Like, does so much damage
And
from
look,
afar.
I mean, it's going to be worth it just to have people try to remember what a whirlwind does.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, wait, what does a whirlwind do again?
But it's kind of funny when you think about it. The minimum ranged weapon for all of your ranged weapons is 48.
Nice.
That touches everything.
Well, except for your scouts. But the artillery, I mean.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, 36 inches for the heavy bolters on the scouts, sure. But I'm saying the stuff that's like, they will occasionally deal some mortal wounds. I'm saying for predators, it's 48, and for the whirlwinds, it's 72. Like,
Not bad.
You can't get away from that.
Yeah, you got to come at it. And that's where G-Man's got you.
Yeah.
That's what the secret plan has been all for. This one moment.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, what's the name of this list?
It's called Duck and Pucker.
Duck and Pucker?
Yes, because you duck, and instead of take cover, because you can't take cover,
No, you can't.
You just pucker and kiss your ass goodbye.
Nice. Got to have some real flexibility.
Duck and Pucker.
Duck and Pucker, boys! Damn it.
It's so much artillery, you gotta have. It's that pucker moment, like your sphincter just closes because you're just like, there's 6 fucking whirlwinds.
It's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot of shots.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that was episode 41 of Roll to Seize. We'll be posting a new episode of this segment every last Wednesday of the month, with episodes of Dark Heresy the first and second Wednesday, and 40K Arena every third Wednesday. And if you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. You can email us any questions at rolltoseize@gmail.com. Of course, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram for tournament and model picks at partialarc. And your fun fact for this month is...
It's ironic that a big Space Marine man is leading no Space Marines.
Yeah, it's true.
Just tanks.
He's just, well, now he's as big as all of them. Maybe, you know what it is? He wanted to have, friends.
He's
his
a tank
his
at
own
heart.
size.
Yeah, he's a tank at heart. He's like, I'm a tank. I see myself.
G-Man, what's wrong? Sometimes I feel like I'm a tank trapped in a giant man's body. And I want to be out there with the other tanks.
I just want to flock with my own tanks.
I want to be where the other tanks are. I want to...